However, in my view, the national mining company model, if correctly conceived, represents the best way forward with the best chance of creating a new and sustainable model for the coming decades. This is the model that we as an industry should explore and engage with in order to make sure, wherever we can, that it creates a sustainable win-win solution and not simply a one-sided transfer of value. We need to learn from both the good and bad sides of the rise to dominance of the national oil companies over the allocation and exploitation of new oil resources over the last 30 years, and engage with the process to ensure that these new state mining companies grow into valued partners and not into parasitic and inefficient overlords. The big question is, how should we as mining companies or investors in mining projects act in order to encourage the right outcomes? And as importantly, what should we do and what skills do we need to bring to bear in order to come out on top and add more value to our shareholders in a more sustainable way than our competitors? Successful social responsibility programs are always worthwhile and can add enormously to community relations and labor relations. However, sadly, in my experience, they generate very little national-level goodwill and tend not to be recognized in negotiations on the fiscal or technical terms associated with mining rights. They should therefore be seen largely in the context of the community surrounding mining operations and should be done as part of one's overall good corporate citizenship without expecting these activities to contribute significantly to countering the pressures of resource nationalism. I would say that the single most important thing that companies and senior executives need to do in order to manage the resource nationalism game is to act with respect. Dealing with officials and local colleagues in our host nations with a genuine appreciation of the value of their culture and position is an essential prerequisite for constructive engagement on the type of emotive and difficult issues that litter the resource nationalism field. If we drop in on flying visits and act like we have all the answers, and act like we don't think we need to bother to show an understanding of local, historical, cultural, and political dynamics, we will fail and end up as targets for endless value extraction until we eventually run away. Mining companies acting towards host governments and officials with perceived disrespect, usually unintentionally, can be very costly and can inflame nationalistic sentiments to the detriment of the whole industry. We need more political skills in the industry. We need to evolve a new culture of management that gives equal weighting and seniority to technical and political capacity. We need more leaders who have the acumen and confidence to act like Harry Oppenheimer when he negotiated with the Botswanan government to create Debswana as a sustainable partnership, albeit one that has arguably evolved too far in favor of the Botswanan government, but nonetheless one that is still the cornerstone of both Botswana and of De Beers more than 30 years later. I believe that we need to use these political skills and strategic vision to support and engage proactively with the creation of a new model for national mining companies. The objectives of this should be very clear: to create sustainable structures that reduce uncertainty, reduce instability, and avoid the moving goalposts of changing legislation and punitive tax and royalty regimes. It is only through real partnership with state bodies that have the financial and technical capacity to fully understand and participate as equals in our industry that we can protect our long-term position. I believe that there are 4 basic principles that the industry should advocate in countries where this is necessary as cornerstones of the new generation of national mining companies. 1, national mining companies should be transparent in order for the electorate, the media, and the international community to be able to clearly see the value creation that is accruing to the nation. 2, the equity participation by the national mining companies in new mining projects should be generally limited to a ceiling of 25%, of which a maximum of 10% should be a free carried interest. 3, exercise of back-in rights should come hand in hand with preferential tax and duty rates and with long-term security and stability agreements for the life of the project. The principle of value for value should be adhered to. 4, the workings of national mining companies and their negotiations with developers of mining projects must be on a level playing field and free of politicization and of the distortions of bureaucratic entrepreneurialism. If we can help to create partners that adhere to these guidelines, we will have a platform to turn short-term political problems into long-term sustainable solutions. In conclusion, our enemies are fear and arrogance. Fear of value destruction paralyzes strategic imagination and is self-fulfilling. Arrogance undermines respect and makes constructive engagement impossible. If we as an industry succumb to our natural instincts to rigidly resist any increased state intervention, we will be inviting enforced value transfers that will prove much more costly than if we engage with genuinely open minds. In my view, the winners and the losers in our industry over the coming decades will be distinguished between those that embrace this process now and those that put their head in the sand and hope that it will go away. It will be very interesting to see who amongst the majors develop the capacity to lead and drive this industry transformation, and which of them will be left behind by smaller companies who have more drive, appetite, and imagination, and can therefore ride this wave to new heights with courage and vision. Thank you. Yes.
Can you give us any examples of companies that you think are following some of your guidelines?
Current examples are more difficult. It's a rapidly evolving arena. There are quite a lot of companies that are acting in a very engaging and constructive way in various countries across the resource world. I think the fruits of those engagements and those relationships remain to be seen. I think some of the big oil companies, in terms of the degree to which they've stood behind technically and financially national oil companies, are probably better examples than we can find in the mining industry at the present time. I think it's worth adding to what I've said with a kind of proviso. I mean, I'm speaking to the industry in terms of how I think we should reorientate the way we deal with political environments. But looking at things from the other perspective and talking to African and other resource-rich governments, going down this route is not necessary, and there are advantages to not going down this route. By being a Mozambique and making statements saying that you're not interested in any government ownership of mining projects does give that country a very big advantage in attracting investment and resulting in more and quicker development of natural resources for the benefit of the country and the people as a whole. So I think while this does represent challenges and opportunities for the mining industry, it likewise represents opportunities for resource-rich governments to be more liberal, I suppose, in terms of the enabling environment and the lack of assertive resource nationalism, and hence the degree to which they attract more investment than their next door neighbor who is more nationalistic and more assertive. Sorry, if we take one more and then we'll...
Fiona Perrott-Humphrey from Rothschild. Brian, just explain to us how you can persuade a national mining company to do all those good things that you listed there without coming across as an arrogant miner.
I think, a lot of how we need to engage with the process is not so much to persuade as to offer and provide resources and experience in a non-prescriptive and non-arrogant manner in the context of high-level personal relationships. And unfortunately or fortunately, the degree to which we as mining companies and as an industry engage constructively with this process, resulting in better outcomes rather than worse outcomes that are less rather than more value destructive, is through developing and nurturing personal relationships of trust. So you are dealing with senior executives at a senior executive to senior politician level in the context of a relationship of kind of trust and warmth. And in the context of those relationships, one can actually have a big impact that's not seen as arrogant or prescriptive. So I think it's hard work and it's time consuming, but we as an industry and as leaders of the industry need to take a step back and focus a lot more time and effort on individual personal relationships with senior players, because that provides the platform where we can actually engage and can actually have an impact. Thank you very much.
Okay.